You are just smear merchants. Not one of you can tell me what I believe. Not one of you knows. But all of the public know because they can go to my YouTube channel, Sargon and Akkad, and just watch for themselves. You dirty, dirty smear merchants. Get there.
He's a self-professed racist. He thinks that the white race is superior. He thinks that races, people, individuals, are inclined to act as they are, as their genetics would determine, and not just in broad strokes like with men and women, which might be plausibly true, but in as far as I can tell, quite specific ways, as in blacks are more inherently prone to violence, or whites are smarter, or Asians are smarter still, and I know that statistically they are, but that doesn't necessarily mean genetically they are. That just means that, you know, this is the end result, and we shouldn't assume the cause if we don't actually know it. Now, this isn't me trying to be excessively liberal. I mean, one of the first things that people sort of had a go at me for in this chat was that I don't believe in race. And what do you mean I don't believe in race? I mean, are you suggesting that I'm looking at other people and I don't think that they are of different races to me? Because that's nonsense. Of course there are other races. It's just the difference is I don't think people should be judged on the fact that they are a member of a different race.
The ancient Greeks practiced pederasty, and it was considered completely normal, where young boys would have relationships, but they weren't exploitative relationships. They were sexual.
Exactly.
They were also it was like a pair bonding, like a mentoring relationship. It was very strange, and I don't agree with any of this.
Somebody's going to misrepresent you and me and say we're going to abuse.
Someone is going to misrepresent me, trying to accurately represent your position as it being my position, because I know what people are like. I personally think the age of consent laws at 16 are just fine. I think they're great. I think we should keep them like that, and I say that as a father. The reason I think that an age of consent law at, say, 16, I mean, even at 14 I find too young, but that's only because I have cousins who are young, and I don't think at 14 they should be having sex with adults, you know. I think it would be exploitative whether they realised it or not, because I don't think they're mature enough to really understand what they're doing. The reason I like age of consent laws, I approve of them, is because they're a blanket protection for people who would get into that situation without knowing exactly what they're doing, without and being, you know, exploited by an adult who was taking advantage of the fact that this young kid was, 13, 14, they're just reaching their sexual maturity, they've got all these confusing feelings, they're not too sure, and they are going to end up experimenting in ways they might not actually be comfortable with, whether they realise it.
Sure.
And so to make sure that none of these people are victimized in this way by an adult who's looking to exploit them, I think an age of consent law at 16, I think you know what you're doing. So I can accept that there may well be individual instances where no harm is done and the law is still broken. But I think the law's existence protects many other people, a greater number of people, from being exploited. And I think that, if a judge were to, if the priest was on trial and Milo was there and he was giving evidence, I imagine it would be up to the discretion of the judge to make a sensible decision in a case like that. So the priest maybe get the minimum punishment or something like that. But I don't think doing away with age of consent laws is a healthy thing to do.
See, look, this is what I mean about the chat. I just can't be bothered to deal with people who treat me like this. It's really annoying. Like, you are acting like a bunch of niggers, just so you know. You act like white niggers. Exactly how you describe black people acting is the impression I get dealing with the alt-right. Do you not think that, like, we should have a level of decorum in interpersonal interactions? I'm saying there's just no point dealing with this kind of attitude. Is it... I know it's called trolling, but it's not like something I need to deal with if I don't want to have to deal with it. Upper class twat. Dude, I'm not an upper class twat. I come from fucking the most working class roots. At least my parents do. You act like an upper class twat now. Maybe you're just acting like a nigger, mate. Have you considered that? Do you think white people act like this? White people are meant to be polite and respectful to one another, and you guys can't even act like white people? It's really, like, amazing to me. It's genuinely amazing to me.
Oh my god, that was beautiful. This part definitely has to get clipped.
I'm sure it will, and I really don't care if you don't agree to these standards. And that's the end of it. I mean, like, I'm sorry for having standards that the alt-right doesn't meet. Sargon has become the male version of Anis Sarkeesian now. Have I really? I mean, I'm literally reading what you say and talking to you about it, and all you can do is insult me and say I'm like someone who would never do that. What's the point in trying? Tell me, honestly, what is the point in trying? I know people are going to, like, think this is something, but honestly, this is just me telling you, it's just not worth my time to deal with you. And it could have been worth my time. I was happy to talk to lots of alt-right people, but just dealing with people is just tiring. It's just this kind of level of just insults constantly. I don't even know the need for it. Like, I'm not a person who talks to you, but I genuinely do. I mean, I can even send you an article that Andrew Anglin wrote, literally saying what I'm saying as he's speaking in defense of me, and you are just acting like chimps. It's mental. You don't have any standards whatsoever. And okay, but I'm afraid I do, so I'm just, like, annoyed that people expect that I should debate the alt-right. It's like, well, I've been there, I've done it, and you really don't make it very inviting, so I'm just not going to bother.
Their level of discourse is that they're saying that they don't want to rape me.
Have you contacted the police?
I haven't on this incident. I mean, obviously, it all sort of happened yesterday. It was a bank holiday. Whilst these people think that I'm sitting around playing the victim, I was playing games in the garden with my children most of the day. So I don't let it bother me.
Jewish people are very smart. They work very hard. Of course they're successful. If we want to even have any idea that we're living in a meritocracy, if Jews weren't succeeding in our societies, they must be being held back. But they're not. They're doing great because they're not being held back, because they do work hard, because they are smart. Jewish people, unfortunately for them, have got to drop the identity politics. I'm sorry about the Holocaust, but I don't give a shit. I'm sorry.
He went really in depth lately on recently on a stream, and he calls all like these kind of pro-Jewish identity groups. He refers to them as like the Jewish Affinity Network, I guess. It's a little bit it's more charitable than what some other people call it, and basically they're very influential and powerful. They're really pro-open borders, and I want to know if how you can like point them out without automatically engaging in what would be considered identity politics.
In all cases, regardless of what our opinion is, we can't be afraid, at least have opinion on. My brother and I have arguments about Israel and Netanyahu and things like that, and settlements. I don't suppose there's a perfect solution to that either. It doesn't seem to be solvable. But same with speaking out against other religions as well. But I'm being vague because maybe I'm being afraid to answer the question.
No.
But
It's all right. I don't think it's about religion, though, is it? It is about the identity politics of it that you're thinking. And I see, I mean, this happened recently in my country with Jeremy Corbyn. And I'm loath to defend a socialist like Jeremy Corbyn, but he didn't deserve the absolute pasting he got in my country, because there are elements in the far left who are so anti-Zionist. They come across as being anti-Jewish. And it's no different to the elements on the far right who are just openly anti-Jewish, or the elements in the Islamist camp who are openly anti-Jewish. But it does mean that it's very difficult because I mean Jewish people do very well in our societies. You know, they're often, and that's to their credit. They work hard. You know, it's not that this is illegitimately gained, but then I can see why people are resentful that successful, rich, well-off people who are well-connected, who are socially very advanced, are then playing the game of identity politics as well. I can see why it doesn't seem fair. You know, it seems like an unfair defense, an unfair advantage that they have. And that's not a common... like, if someone would say, well, that's an anti-Semitic thing to say, it would sound to me like someone criticizing feminism being called a misogynist. You know, to me, it's just another brand of identity politics. But it's not an indictment of Jewish people. It's not suggest that they've done, you know, nothing wrong by playing identity politics. Everyone, I think, is playing identity politics, is doing something wrong inherently. But it is an issue that I think a lot of people do notice, and I think it is something that has to have an honest conversation regarding it. They've got to be honest. You can't just shout people down when they point this out, because it is a real thing they're pointing out. Jewish people are very smart. They work very hard. Of course they're successful. If we want to even have any idea that we're living in a meritocracy, if Jews weren't succeeding in our societies, they must be being held back. But they're not. They're doing great because they're not being held back, because they do work hard, because they are smart. We need Jewish people, unfortunately for them, have got to drop the identity politics. I'm sorry about the Holocaust, but I don't give a shit. I'm sorry.
It is not acceptable to call me a retard.
You know what? Fair enough. You can't change that you're a retard, and it's not very nice for me to call you a retard. I won't do it.
Or call yourself or your friends retarded.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, retard? Don't let words hurt you. They are just words. Stop teaching children that words can hurt them. They're just fucking words. They don't do anything. They don't do any damage. No one is ever injured by a word. Therefore, it's not appropriate to condition children to think they should be injured by words, because ultimately they aren't. Stop trying to police other people's speech and try actually teaching them something that might be beneficial for themselves in the real world. And remember, please, you aren't the boss of anyone. No one has to do as you say.